Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Storm, and this is the second movie about magic that I've done in the last 2 weeks. Uh, Two movies in 2 weeks about magic. A coincidence, but a very nice one. The last movie I did was Doctor Strange. And this time, I'm talking about Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It is the newest installment for the Harry Potter franchise, at least comes to the movies anyway. Uh, it's loosely based on the book of the same name. Within the Harry Potter universe, there's a book called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Uh, and later on, J.K. Rowling actually made a real life book based on the fictional book. Yeah, that makes any sense. Still called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Still written by Newt Scamander, as in universe, the real life book. I mean, that she came out with later on. Uh, Again, the movie is loosely based on the book of the same name. It takes place in New York City, 1926. The movie revolves around Newt Scamander, the soon-to-be famous wizard, as he's going through a stopover in New York on his during his travels, studying and collecting animals, magical creatures rather, documenting them, and just trying to learn more about them and present them to those in the world and why they should be preserved and kept safe instead of just hunted down and destroyed relentlessly, which apparently is the way things have been going, the way Newt Scamander had acted. Uh, so the movie really does give a very different look to the Harry Potter, a very different look and feel to the Harry Potter universe. Before, in the original 7, 8 movies, the stories usually were self-contained within Hogwarts, just within the school. But with Fantastic Beasts, it takes place primarily, interestingly enough, within the Muggle world, or Nomad rather. Uh, in 1920s U.S. America, they call Muggles No-Mages. Apparently spelled N-O-M-A-J, which I like honestly. I like the term No-Mage. I remember when J.K. Rowling first announced that she revealed that in the U.S. they called Muggles No-Mages. I remember there being a lot of backlash from Harry Potter fans about that. Like J.K. Rowling was changing things all of a sudden out of nowhere, but really it just makes sense. I mean, there are plenty of things within the US that have different names and meanings than what you would find in the UK, so why would that not apply to even the term muggle? Uh, it's kind of funny when Newt Scamander was presented with the word nomad, he was just sitting there lost for a second, not really understanding what was being said to him. Until it was pointed out to him, like, oh, yes, nomads, is the non magical folk. And Newt Scamander's like, oh, sorry, we call them muggles in the UK, in England. I, just a funny interaction there. Um, Again, the movie takes place primarily in the Muggle world. Newt Scamander has come over from the UK, or actually from where he's come out. I don't remember exactly where he was coming over, but it was a stopover in the US during his travels. Um, he was on his way to present his findings to the Ministry of Magic, apparently, and again, during his travels, trying to study more animals, he comes to New York for a second before continuing on, and that's when he gets caught up in whatever's going on in New York. He bumps into a muggle by the name of Jacob Kowalski, who's very desperate to get a bank loan for a bakery he wants to open. And the fact that we have a muggle as one of the main characters, I think, is just brings a very nice new layer to the movie. Uh, Very obviously, it's a series about magic, right? So of course, we're not gonna see too many muggles other than the Dursleys and maybe some background people early on in the Harry Potter films. Uh, but having a Muggle as a main or nomad, I suppose you should say, as one of the main characters, I think was a very very nice touch. I mean, usually the explanation as to we don't why the wizards and witches have hidden themselves from non magical folks, from no mages or muggles, is for protection, basically. You know, protection for themselves, apparently, protection for the muggles. Hagrid himself even says that they will be bothered too much by muggles trying to get magical fixes for all their problems. You know, just too much of a hassle, too much of a bother to have people constantly hounding you over and over again for fixes or what have you. Um, and I guess actually One of the things that the movie did really well was show two sides of the whole Muggle situation. We have one side which fears and persecutes magic and witches. I believe they call themselves the Second Salem Foundation, something like that. Basically, sort of an orphanage that basically was trying to carry on the original duties of Salem, Massachusetts. You know, the Salem witch trials. And then we have the other side, Jacob, who is utterly in awe of magic. He doesn't fear it or hate it off the jump. He sees what Newt Scamander and the other witches and wizards he meets in the movie can do, and he's just in awe of it all. He loves it. He loves magic, and I think that's really really great to show that not everyone, not every non magical person is just going to out and out hate what they don't understand. And I mean, very obviously, uh, Jacob didn't understand exactly what was going on. The like what Newt was up to, the magical creatures he had with him, you know, all the stuff that was happening, he didn't exactly understand. But at the same time, he went along with it, right? It was just natural for him almost. I guess that has to be when you're being kind of roped along with it. You find yourself in a situation that you can't really find yourself out of, and you kind of have to rope the punches. That's kind of what happened with Jacob and Newt Scamander. Uh, while I was walking through New York, Newt had coming from the bank and questioned that Jacob wanted to go to get a loan, and that's when he saw the second Salemites, whatever. The woman in charge of the orphanage was uh, doing a big speech in front of the bank, trying to warn people of the dangers of magic and witches and everything, which unfortunately was getting some sort of traction because as Newt Scamander comes to New York during this time, there's been a series of magical attacks throughout the city, and as far as the American ministry is concerned, as far as I can tell, or rather, well, not the American ministry, rather it is the Magical Congress of the United States, or the MACUSA, I think it's pronounced. Uh, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but the fact that it's called the Magical Congress of the United States seems a bit on the nose to me. I mean, granted, of course, every government in the world has a Congress that works with it, but I don't know. It just seems to me that the kind of is a little on the nose to me. As a matter of fact, the leader of the Magical Congress is also a president. And again, granted, the U.S. is not the only country in the world to have a president as its leader rather than a minister like most other countries, but still, it can't seem on the nose. I can't tell if that was if that's just what it was called, the Magical Congress, and the president as the head of the government, or was this doing that thing where the magical equivalent is just named similarly to the non-magical equivalent, like you see often in works of fiction. I don't know, but I mean, it's not a bad thing or whatever. It's just something that I noticed, and I can't help but think that maybe it was a bit on the nose, that they kind of did it on purpose. I don't know. It's not the point. Anyway, while I'm from the bank listening to the second Salemers, whatever, the woman in charge of the orphanage talking about magic, a Niffler unfortunately snuck out of Newt Scamander's case. He has a magical case he's carrying around that contains all the magical creatures that he's discovered and is documenting. It snuck out of the case and somehow got past all the people in attendance. No one seemed to notice a big mole creature, not big, a small mole creature, kind of just walk up the steps of the bank in broad daylight, mind you, and get into the bank. And no one in the bank seemed to notice it as well. Yeah, a Niffler, in case you didn't know, is a magical creature that is attracted to very shiny objects and anything of value, and the jewels or gold or anything. And wouldn't you know it of course it had to escape in front of the bank where jewels and gold and everything practically live. Newt had to get in there and get back the Niffler. And so he ran into the nomad, Jacob. Uh, Unfortunately, Jacob got roped into everything because an egg fell out of Newt's pocket in the on the bench that was sitting on. Jacob found it and tried to return it to Newt. And, you know, someone who's as eccentric as Newt is, of course, would not worry too much about secrecy. Well, he does obviously worry about secrecy, but not to the extent that he had no problems taking out his wand and kind of, I guess, casting the Axio spell to bring Jacob to him from across the room, just as quickly and discreetly so no one could see the magical egg in his hand. He grabbed Jacob and then disapparated into the vault room where the Niffler had gone to. And it's one of those things where you have to think you could just do the most simple thing to solve all the problems, but instead of doing that, while they were in the vault room, Newt kind of watched the Niffler kind of squeeze under the door to the vault and get into where all the money and everything was, which impressive that it could do that, honestly. But then again, I suppose it's a magical creature after all. Of course, it can slide under the doors for a vault. We see this happening, and then Newt just does nothing. He grabbed an entire human from across the room using a spell, grabbed him and disapparated instantly. Yeah, the last second he saw the Niffler slide under the door, but did nothing to stop it. I mean, granted, I suppose he doesn't want to hurt the creature unnecessarily using magic. But at the same time, you had the chance. You could have done something, or like even frozen it. I mean, just in the scene, one of the bank tellers the banker who was talking to Jacob about his bank loan, which unfortunately he did not get, came down to the vault room for whatever reason, saw the two of them there, the vault door open and everything, and Newt trying to get the Niffler, although I don't think he knows the Niffler. And instantly, before the banker could do anything, unfortunately he sounded the alarm immediately, but before the banker could do anything else, Newt used the paralysis spell, the Petrificus Totalis, to freeze his body so he couldn't do anything else. And you couldn't do that to the Niffler? I mean, it wouldn't have hurt him, right? You could have frozen his body. Actually, not even that. After he got into the vault room, you could have frozen the body. But instead, he decides to wrestle with the Niffler, trying to shake the gold coins out of his pockets, the one pouch he has, and then as soon as the guards show up with shotguns in hand to apprehend Newton and Jacob, Newt immediately he gets the Niffler and all the jewels he's stolen out of him, grabs Jacob, and separates outside of the bank, and returns the Niffler to his case. And before he can obliviate Jacob's mind, so to make him forget everything that happened, Jacob grabs the wrong case, mind you, not his own suitcase that he had, but Newt's suitcase, of course, and then smacks him in the head with it and walks off. Granted, I didn't see that coming, honestly, but considering that it's 1920s, no one would pretty much give a fuck about any sort of repercussions, I suppose. Jacob took the case, hit him, walked off like nothing happened. Now, granted, when I saw the two of them had suitcases, I could instantly tell that they're going to do the whole switcheroo thing. Like, they're going to accidentally switch cases, and that's how everything's going to happen. But granted, having it in a way that I was not actually expecting. I assumed, that we were going to get a small scene, a quick jump cut, where we see both suitcases putting down next to each other, and then Jacob very obviously picking up the wrong case, and Newton picking up the wrong case, and then leaving. But the way they did was actually a lot more clever. Even though I knew what was going to happen, the way it happened was a bit more clever than what a movie would usually do. So I give them props on that. Unfortunately for Newt, an aura or ex-aura, unfortunately by the name of Tina, she didn't see the whole situation, but she saw very obviously a wizard walk into the bank, and then she waited for him to emerge, which he did. She saw Newt and Jacob apparate into the alleyway where the unfortunate switch and then head injury occurred. Tina quickly grabbed Newt and he quickly explained what had happened. The Niffler got out, and she realized his case is full of magical creatures. Can't have that happen. So she immediately brought him to the Magical Congress, and she tried to present him before the president, doing an important meeting with a bunch of other auras about the magical attacks happening. And of course, it's just annoying, just very annoying. Apparently, according to Tina, the ex Aura, Newt is a Section 3A, which is apparently severe enough that she felt that she needed to bring him in front of the president of the Magical Congress. But I mean, I guess when I think about it, an unregistered wizard who has, I guess you could say, illegally smuggled, I suppose you could say, magical creatures is not a pressing enough concern to bring to the president. But so at the same time, though, when Tina tried to talk to the president, what was her name? Serafina Pickery. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The president just shoot her out. Like, you're not an aura anymore, Tina. You know what you did. We're in the middle of an important meeting. Whoever this guy is, go, go, go. I can't talk to you right now. I'm in the middle of something. Not now. Again, you're not an aura. Go. And of course, in the middle of being shooed away, Tina was trying to explain what was going on, but unfortunately, she had to go. And again, I guess an unregistered wizard with some magical creatures is not the most pressing concern to bring in front of the president. But at the same time, though, if Tina thought it was so important, she should have said something instead of allowing herself to be talked down and then kicked out, as if she wasn't that important. And I suppose, well, demotion anyway. I suppose she's not that important anymore, but still, she could have said something. It's just annoying. A lot of people hate that sort of situation happens. If you have something important to say, then fucking say it. Don't. It was at that point she should have said something. I don't know. More to the point, though, one of the auras in the middle of the meeting, Percival Graves, his name was, he realized that Tina had something important to say, so he came to her office, or wherever the hell is she's working, to talk to her about exactly what it is that she thought was so important that she had to talk to the president directly. She explained the situation to him, unregistered wizard, Newt's commander, case of magical creatures. So Graves opened the case, and of course, wouldn't you know it, no magical creatures, but a case full of pastries that Jacob had made, hoping to use them as collateral for a bank loan, which I don't see how that could have worked, honestly. I don't know, the guy's desperate. He works in a canning factory making canned food, or putting food into cans anyway. Just, the guy wants to open a bakery, so I mean, any chance he could get, right? So once they realized the situation, Newt and Tina, I have no idea why Graves wasn't involved in this, but apparently he wasn't. They rushed to find where Jacob is, and unfortunately, by the time they get there, Jacob had already opened the case, and magical creatures were set loose, which is the crux of the movie. Magical creatures have gotten loose in New York, and now Newt has to go and recollect them. Important for him to do so, also, because again, it's his findings that, once he presents them to the world itself, the Ministry of Magic, and most importantly within the UK, that the wizard world can understand magical creatures more, can understand their purpose, and not just destroy them without reason or cause. So, for most of the movie, there's Newt and Jacob Newt and Jacob mostly. Well, Tina and her sister, what was her name? Queenie was her name. Newt, Jacob, Tina, and Queenie, mostly Newt and Jacob, go around the city trying to find the magical creatures. Unfortunately, when they got to Jacob's house, he had been stung or bitten by a mudlap, a kind of a flying bug magical creature. So to fix him, they had to bring Jacob to Tina's place where his sister was. They lived together. And for what it's worth, there was a nice budding relationship, romance between Jacob and Queenie, despite the non-magical and magical difference between the two of them. I mean, obviously there are muggles and wizards and witches marrying each other Well, in the Harry Potter universe anyway. According to Newt earlier in the film, he says that the U.S. has, according to him, very backwards laws about relationships between non-magic people and magical people. Considering it's the 20s, I assume that maybe has changed that time the original Harry Potter series was run back in the 90s. Or it could be that even back then the UK was a little more progressive, allowing magical people and wizards and witches to get together. Um, it was kind of nice though, just seeing Jacob and Queenie kind of have that relationship build with each other. It was a nice romance that I actually appreciated, and fortunately, even though they kind of were going that way with between Newt and Tina, they didn't. Which, good or bad, I suppose, depending on how you want to look at it. But I think it's kind of good though. I mean, I think too much romance is too much, and especially where you had one relationship building in the movie already. We didn't need another one. So I think in that sense, it was good that they kind of held off on Newt and Tina actually getting together. Uh, so while they were at Tina and Queenie's place, Newt opened his case and allowed Jacob to come in as well to see exactly what was in there, all the magical creatures he had. And, there is that, willing suspension of disbelief, that thing you do when you see something happening in a movie and you're like, "Well, it's a movie, whatever. Of course, this can happen in real life." So I ignore that part. But, sometimes I think things go a little too far. Newt's case was basically a miniature zoo, honestly, with the different magical creatures that he had at the time before they had to go back out and find the ones that were still missing. I mean, just it really was a zoo. He had different pens for the different animals, um, locked off from each one from another. He had, I don't even know half the names of the creatures in there. I can't even. He had a few creatures like, oh, fuck, I know the damn name of it too. Shit. Then again, I think they called it something differently in the movie. Basically, snake creatures with the heads of birds and the wings of birds. I almost want to call it a basilisk, or it wasn't a basilisk. Basilisk in the Harry Potter was basilisk, so just giant snakes. Uh, Whatever. It doesn't matter. But the zoo itself had all the different creatures that Newt had collected and was studying, and it was nice. Honestly, it was so really cool to see so many magical creatures. We had never seen so many magical creatures before in the series until that point, and it was so nice to see again to see more into this universe, to have everything expanded so much. I think my only complete complaint though is that there's a little too much CGI in the scene itself, which I think is a necessity. Obviously, you can't do a scene like that without any CGI. Period. But I think there was just too much. Like when Newt was cuddling up to one of his creatures, I think it was called a Thunderbird or something. It had some control over the weather. I mean, Newt, his actor Eddie Redmayne, up against the very obviously fake creature like that. It's just it kind of bothered me a bit, and not enough that it took me to completely out of the scene, but enough that I was like, it's noticeable, right? It's completely noticeable what I'm seeing. Again, it's unavoidable. I get that. I completely understand that. But I mean, when you look back at the hippogriff in Prison of Azkaban, or the basilisk in Chamber of Secrets, or even Aragog, the giant spider in Chamber of Secrets, they did a little better with those, making them seem at least somewhat realistic. But the other creatures that we see in the movie are very obviously just completely CGI, not even an ounce of effort really to do anything. Like for instance, they were actually going to make Aragog completely CGI, but like one of the staff actually spoke up and said, "I think we can actually make that real. I think we can actually make a giant puppet or something to make Aragog," and they did, and it looked much better for that. The Basilisk obviously they had to make some sort of compromise with that. I believe it actually was half machine. It was a big machine that they made for the Basilisk, mixed in with CGI, which works. Uh, but I felt that they could have done it to an extent here in Fantastic Beasts. again, it's not a deal breaker, nothing that really took me out of the movie. It's just something I really noticed, and that kind of bothered me a little bit. I think. I don't know. So the Aura Graves I mentioned before. Apparently, he's been in contact with the Second Salem's. That's what I'm calling them. The Second Salem's. I can't fucking remember the hell the thing is called. One of them anyway. The oldest boy, Credence. Again, it's an orphanage that the woman runs. Uh, Graves, I think, is maybe a seer. You know, like Trelawney was, except maybe a lot better, to an extent anyway. He foresees a great disaster coming. An obscurus. An obscurus is, as Newt had described, he has one in his magical zoo in his case. An obscurus is a very dark, malevolent force. Whenever a witch or wizard is forced to suppress their own magic due to fears of persecution or punishment or what have you, an obscurus is created. And an obscurus will always lash out whenever that witch or wizard is feeling any sort of pressure on them, any sort of resentment or anger on them. Newt tried to help a young girl in Sudanese, is in Africa, I think. He tried to help her, a young girl who had an obscurus within her, but unfortunately, he couldn't do anything to stop it from destroying her. Uh, according to Newt, an obscurial, which is the host of an obscurus, doesn't live past the age of 10 because of the pressure built up. Newt took the obscurus and was using to study. He kept it in his zoo, in the kind of magical container. According to him, it can't hurt anyone without a host. Without a host, the obscurus is not dangerous anyway, which is why Newt was keeping it so he could study. So according to Graves, I think Graves could very much see what was going on. He knew that the magical attacks going on in the city, very obviously not done by a human, some sort of magical force. He knew that it may have been an obscurus, which apparently came to fruition when a presidential candidate, while who was having a meeting, not a meeting, a gathering anyway in the city, the obscurus attacked and killed him. And, kind of putting two and two together, Graves kind of realized that the obscurus lashed out at the presidential candidate, whose name I forget, honestly. Because the Second Salems had come to, I think it was the mayor of New York. They come to him to try and get his support for their goals. Yeah, again, to try and go on a brand new witch hunt, try to track down magic and magical people, but the mayor kind of shooed them out because he didn't want to listen to them. Even though his son, one of his sons rather, he was a reporter, for the newspaper, tried to get his father to listen. Like, these guys are serious. We have evidence that this is magic's doing all this crazy stuff in the city. The mayor shoot him, like talk to son down, shoot them out, and his other son, the presidential candidate, kind of insulted the young man Credence that Graves has been in contact with, and very obviously that bothered Credence's younger sister. Her name was Modesty, which is very creepy of a name for her, I think. I think Chastity can be a name sometimes, but even then, that's a creepy name. She's like, 8 years old, 10 years old? Just a very odd name. What's his name, the presidential candidate kind of insulted Credence. Very obviously that bothered his sister. Very, very obvious foreshadowing on the movie's part. Graves was sort of hell-bent on finding the young girl, or young child, who, I'm gonna think about it. Why. Okay, so Graves is a seer. No, yeah, that makes sense. Graves is a seer, apparently, as far as I can tell. But he knew that Credence has some sort of connection to the child. That Credence would somehow either find the child or was close enough to the child that that it would have an effect on him. That Graves could somehow use Credence to lead him to the child. When I think about it, though, like Graves should put two and two together though and realized that modesty. That is a terrible fucking name. That is a terrible name. Jesus. That modesty was possibly the child that he was looking for. I mean, if he knew that Queen was close enough to the child, then it's an orphanage full of kids. At the very least, he should have checked them first, right? Uh, I don't know. I don't know if that's a plot hole you could think of, but or that's just him being kind of slow in that part. But anyway, so after Newt had showed Jacob a zoo, they had received word that not received word. They went out to find the last few remaining magical creatures. Fortunately, they found one of them, and after Jacob and Newt got back into the case and went into the case itself to kind of tend to things, Tina, unfortunately, when she and Queenie had realized that they had escaped from her apartment, they went to go find them. What Tina did anyway. Tina went to go find them. She took the case, locked it to make sure they couldn't escape, brought it back to the ministry. Now, this is when ministry, the Congress, Magical Congress. During this point, though, for some reason, the Magical Congress is having an international meeting between the Ministry of Magic from the UK, the Asian magical government, the African magical government, and possibly any other ones that were there to discuss the weird disturbances going on in New York. Now, very obviously, while these weird magical attacks were going on, very, very obviously, it was something to consider. It's not something to ignore, but I don't really see that it's kind of self-contained in one country, in one half of the country, in one city. So I kind of didn't see. I don't know. When I look back, I think it's kind of just an excuse, maybe just to kind of shoehorn in the Ministry of Magic and possibly some of the other magical governments, just for the hell of it. Granted, again, it's very odd to have these things happening, but I don't see the point of bringing in like three other different magical governments into this sort of thing. Though granted, I will say that the Magical Congress did think that maybe Grindelwald was involved somehow. Oh, that's right. That's right. The movie takes place during the reign of the Dark Wizard Gellert Grindelwald, who was Dumbledore's like greatest enemy at the time. Dumbledore eventually does defeat Grindelwald, as we know, and then apparently locks him in his own prison. But during this time, they were thinking, okay, you know what? Okay, I take back what I said. I take back what I said. Because Europe was on high alert about Grindelwald, and because of the things that he was doing, I guess the Magical Congress did think that maybe he was involved in the attack somehow. Maybe they decided to consult with the Minister of Magic at the time. That maybe he was somehow involved. But again, at the same time, though, the Asian and African magical governments were there as well. So unless Grindelwald was openly active in those two areas too, I don't really see the need to bring them into it. I don't know. But anyway, Tina did what she thought she should have done the first time. Bring the case and Newt Scamander to the president of the Magical Congress and explain what was going on. And as she was there, she came into this big. Again, this is a big meeting. Again, there are people from the four different governments: the African, Asian, American, and British. Well, British, yeah, whatever. Governments. European? No. That's not European. Big meeting. Tina was kind of out of her depth there. But she finally did what she had to do. She opened the case up. Newt came out, and so did Jacob. Tina explained what was going on. Unregistered wizard with magical creatures in the U.S. And immediately the president kind of lost her temper a little bit because, what, now you tell me this is happening? You tell me this is happening now After a major attack has happened against a presidential candidate, a nomad presidential candidate, you tell me this now that there's a possible connection. Granted, wrong. She was wrong. Right? I mean, she was wrong on it, but she wasn't wrong to think there could have been a connection. They apparently had a sort of magical projection of the presidential candidate's body. Newt was looking at it and realized that he was not killed by a magical creature. He was killed by an obscurus. I mean, his entire face was burnt. a very obvious, a very obvious sign of an obscurus. Even though the president denied that there was obscurus in the U.S., hasn't been obscurus in the U.S. for centuries. Pardon me. Newt was sure that it was an obscurus. So they took Tina and Newt and Jacob into custody, threw them into jail, and then interrogated them. No, I'm sorry. They were interrogated first, then thrown into jail. I think. I don't remember exactly. They raided Newt's case, found the obscurus, and this is really telling, honestly. Very obvious this is telling on Graves' part. When Newt explained that the obscurus was powerless and not a danger without a host, that really seemed to bother Graves. He actually said, when we said it, when Newt said that the obscurus couldn't do anything without a host, Graves like flat out said, so it's useless then. And like in that instant, I was like, okay, there's the bad guy. Found the bad guy. That's him. I thought it was the crazy fucking nun who likes to beat all the children that she's adopted, Credence most of all, which is why he's so willing to help Graves try to find the child that he's looking for. Right when he said that, I figured, yep, there's the bad guy. Of course, corrupt government official. Wouldn't you know it? So he immediately sentenced Newt and Tina to death. I don't remember what he said about Jacob. He sentenced them to death. Apparently, they were going to drown the two of them in a large pool of water. The eeriest thing, though, one of the witches who was handling Tina actually removed one of her memories and tossed it into the water. It's just like just the oddest lobotomy possible. It's scary as fuck, honestly. Just very unnerving. One of her brightest memories. That's what they did though. She took out some of her brightest memories from childhood, and one particular instance that we later on learned was the reason for her dismissal as an aura. I mentioned that the head of the orphanage likes to beat the children that she has under her care, and just beats them physically, and also indoctrinates them with her talk of how dangerous magic and witches are. Apparently, while investigating them, Tina barged in on one particular instance where she was beating Credence, the oldest boy that she has. Tina assaulted the woman. And tried to give Credence a little bit of help, but unfortunately, the Magical Congress had to intervene. They obliterated everyone. I think Credence remembers it though. He remembers the instance, and that's how Tina got demoted. Unfortunately, but very obviously, she stands by what she did, trying to help them. It's all the kids are very much in a very bad situation. Credence most of all because apparently the woman in charge of the orphanage loves to beat him the most for some reason. Whenever he does something wrong, like being out too late. Newt frees himself, saves Tina, and they both get the hell out of Dodge. In order to find the last few remaining magical creatures and hopefully get the hell out of the U.S. or whatever the hell they need to do. Clear their names, really, is what they would need to do. They go to a magical speakeasy. Now, for the time, in the U.S., a speakeasy, of course, was not something to be kind of shocked at, but the fact that not only was it a speakeasy, but it was a magical one, and again, it really adds a new layer I think really of culture to the Harry Potter universe. The Speakeasy, we had there was like a goblin singing. She was a jazz singer. There was a giant in the corner sipping coffee, reading a newspaper. There was a house up behind the bar serving drinks. Oh, I forgot to mention, uh, Queenie being illegitimate and being able to connect with Jacob so easily, which is why the relationship was able to bud so quickly and so easily. She read her sister's mind, realizing they were going to be executed, and was able to finagle her way into letting one of the guards who was escorting Jacob for obliviation into letting her take him, threatening to expose his apparently secret affair with another woman. She and Jacob helped Newt and Tina escape, and that's when we went to the magical speakeasy. What's his name? No, like I think it was the goblin who runs the speakeasy. And honestly, wait, was he a goblin? Or was he was a goblin. And really, you know what? If at some point in the future they said that goblins were, hold on one second, let me actually check this. Was he actually a goblin? I say he was a goblin. But okay, fine, forget it. Let's say he's a goblin. If they at some point in the future said that all goblins actually came from one country and that they just kind of spread out through generations, I would totally want that to be the case. I would totally want them to be from the U.S. because really, not only does a house elf with a New York accent work to me, so does a goblin with a very thick New York accent. He had Narlock, I think his name was. The kind of one of the thickest New York accents I've ever heard, and it fucking works. He has the white striped button up shirt. He has the suspenders. He wants to speak easy. He has a cigar in his mouth. It fucking works for him. That the whole image works. He apparently he is going to. Tino tries to talk to him for information for the last few magical creatures that are missing. And after a botched trade between Newt and his bow truckle, which Narlock wanted because they can apparently undo locks, which would do very well for someone as sketchy as a guy who runs a very underground magical speakeasy. Narlock, unbeknownst to them to the last second, actually tips off the magical congress that they're at his bar. Newt punches Narlax, takes back his bow truckle, and they all escape, fortunately enough. It's pretty much at this point that things are coming to a head. Graves is very much annoyed by everything that's going on. That they escaped. They said custody. They still have the magical creatures in hand, and they are no closer to finding the magical threats to New York. And the child that Graves wants for himself, which at this point is very obviously an obscurus, obscure again. Obscure is a host. Obscurus is the creature, or rather the magical force. Not that it matters. It doesn't matter. After finding a wand under Modesty's, God, that name just bothers me so much. After finding a toy wand under Modesty's bed, the head of the orphanage, Credence found the wand. The head of the orphanage overheard things and tried to beat Credence because he was holding it. When Modesty tried to stand up for him, that's when the Obscurus unleashed itself and killed the woman. Jesus, that's the second death in the movie, actually. Fuck. I mean, I think probably around the time of Order of the Phoenix, or possibly Half-Blood Prince, Harry Potter got a lot darker. We're seeing deaths here and there now. The deaths of the presidential candidates early in the movie, and then now the head of the orphanage, were pretty violent, honestly. The whole house was destroyed, and Modesty ran off back to her childhood home before the woman took her and put her in the orphanage. Graves shows up and tries to kind of force the location out of Credence. Before, well, of course, what kindness and understanding were getting him what he wanted. Graves is at his wit's end. He wants to find, now that they realize that there is an Obscurus going around doing these magical attacks, Graves wants answers. And so he has to kind of force them out of Credence. Credence leads him to Modesty's old childhood home. And at this point, of course, like I said, corrupt government official wanting power, he kind of tosses Credence aside, telling him that he can't help him as much as he said he could. The old woman running the orphanage openly berates Credence for having very wicked and disgusting parents, saying that his mother was a disgusting creature, and then Graves tossing him to the aside and telling him he's a squib. It all kind of comes together that way. It explains why Credence was. Hmm. I'm gonna think about it. No, it doesn't make sense. I was gonna say that maybe all of the kids at the orphanage were maybe magical, and maybe that's why the woman took them. But if that were the case, then all of them would be obscurial, wouldn't they? They would all have obscuruses within them, and the damage to the city would be like 1,000 times worse. Hmm. But the fact that Credence's mother was a witch was why he was beaten so much and just mistreated so much, and why he was being manipulated by Graves. And at the last second, Graves says, "Nah, you're not. You can't do anything for me. You're a squib, Credence. I was lying to you. I lied, like a liar, and told him that he was useless and wasn't actually going to help him. Went to go find Modesty so he could try to take advantage of her and use her abilities as an obscurial to what end, who knows. Tossed Queen's aside to go after his sister. Mistake. As it turns out, as Graves himself said, he owes Credence an apology. As it turns out, Credence was only in Graves' visions, the only reason that Credence was so close to the magical child and this Obscurus was because Credence himself was the Obscurial. He had the Obscurus within him the entire time. And despite Graves trying to warn him, like, okay, Credence, hold on for a second, my mistake. Work with me up for a second. We can control the power of the Obscurus. We can control it and use it. And Credence is like, I don't want you to control it. That is when he leaves his human form and turns into a massive swirling ball of just malevolent energy and starts rampaging through the city. After Newt and Jacob and Tina and Queenie get the last couple of magical creatures, that's when Credence in his Obscurus form is seen rampaging through the city. So they have to work together to try to take him down and try to get him, calm him down, so everyone can go home safe and happy. The Magical Congress sees the destruction. They follow it to a subway, to the subway, and put up a magical barrier to try to contain the situation. Tina, Graves, and Newt slip through the magical barrier. Under the magical barrier before it could be fully put up. Graves just flat out walks past it because he's the one in charge of the operation, obviously trying to get Credence under control. Tina and Newt sneak under it before the magical barrier could be established. Newt finds Credence in one of the railways, kind of, as I like to tell, sobbing and not being able to comprehend what's going on, not being able to comprehend the fact that the one person he trusted in the world just tossed him aside. He wanted to be a wizard so badly. He wanted to be in the magical world so badly. He was told he could be, and Graves told him he couldn't be. Told him he was a squib, having magical ancestry but no magic himself, and now he's just sitting there, just distraught, just completely destroyed. And Newt, for all of his eccentricities, the way he operates, which honestly I thought, the image in my head I've always had of Newt Scamander was that I guess some sort of scholar. He did go to Hogwarts, but was unfortunately expelled, despite Dumbledore's protests, no less. For whatever infraction he caused, even Dumbledore couldn't save him, so he got kicked out. But for its worth, for what little we all knew of him, I'd always imagined him being much more academic, much more of a scholar. But Newt Scamander is so very much eccentric, which I think is probably what's needed for magical creatures. Honestly, kind of the way he was able to tame the creatures and gain their confidence and put them in a safe place. The way he tried to talk to Credence, tried to calm him down, and did, honestly, got him out of his obscurest form back to his human form, and was almost able to get him under control. Graves comes in, and is just the strong, just the iron fist to Newt's gentle hand, and almost sets Credence off again. And then Tina shows up. And again, as I mentioned before, Tina tried to save Credence. She attacked the head of the orphanage for mistreating him so much. Apparently, they were all obliviated, everyone in the orphanage, but for some reason, Credence remembers. And I don't remember I don't think they said how he remembers, because I would assume he'd be obliviated. But he remembers. He remembers the one other person in the world who tried to help him. Or possibly at that point in time, the one person who did try to help him. Remembers how that she tried to comfort him, tried to save him from a world of misery, but ultimately couldn't because of the bureaucracy of it all. And almost had it. Like, it was a weird combination between Newt's gentle hand trying to the way he always deals with magical creatures was working in this situation. Tina, being the caring person she is, being the one person in the world who actually tried to help him, and Graves, again, sort of iron-fisted approach. In a weird way, this combination was actually sort of working and kind of getting Credence to calm down, get him under control. But unfortunately, the president, as well as a bunch of other Aurors, showed up, and that set Credence off, making him kind of explode in a way back into his obscurest form. And even though, despite Newt and Tina's and Graves' protests, the president had all the Aurors just shoot a bunch of magical spells at Credence and actually kill him, which really surprised me. Whenever there's a movie like that where you try to get a child under control, when you try to get, and for Credence it was actually much more impressive. I mentioned before how according to Newt, an obscure will never live past the age of 10 because of the magical buildup and pressure of the whole thing. And the girl in Africa he tried to help was only 8 when she died. Credence was like maybe 14 or 15 years old. So at that point, the obscurus within him was even much more powerful, was way more of a danger, which partially explains why the president ordered his execution, unfortunately. And honestly, I was actually sad to see that. As much as I don't want to see, like, so many cliches or obvious attempts at shock in the movie, kind of going the other way in this situation where Credence was actually killed. I didn't want to see that. I actually felt for the guy. I actually wanted the guy to be okay. But unfortunately, he wasn't. And I don't know, maybe he was unstable. He was only unstable because of the situation. If they had gotten him under control, they could have gotten him to calm down and put him into a better situation. Maybe things could have been fine. I don't know. It sucks that way. The movie did a very nice job of, what's what I'm looking for? Not a. Okay, yeah. The movie did a pretty good job at making Credence's sister Modesty a red herring. Like, the camera would often close in on her. Dramatic music would play. There were often times in the movie where the camera would be kind of focused on her solely, as she's spouting the very odd nursery rhymes, the anti-magic, anti-witch nursery rhymes that their mother had taught them, the head of the orphanage. You know, very nice way of doing a red herring when it was actually Credence who was the obscurial the entire time. And unfortunately, it's because of that. Fuck. I mean, it was a good red herring. Actually, a nice surprise in the movie. Honestly, I did not see coming, and unfortunately, the whole thing had to end with the boy dying. After he was killed, Graves kind of went on a mini rant about how the president did that because of the law. The law says that we can't expose the magical world to the non-magical world, and what Graves said, honestly, it made sense in a way that he feels that this so-called law that they have in place is to protect the wizarding world from the non-wizarding world, the non-magic world. But the lengths that they go to do this, to preserve their so-called peace, to preserve the order. I don't know, and it's kind of the way that the president kind of looked at him as he said this, like kind of like what he was saying actually was registering with her. Graves said that the law seems to be more so to protect wizards than it is to protect, the non-magic people. Again, the lengths that they go to, that they would kill a boy who needed help. He was dangerous. That's true, but also he needed help. If someone could have helped him, they could have gotten everything under control. Newt even was able to get the Obscurus out of the body of the young girl who tried to help before. Possibly he could do it again with Credence, or at the very least they could walk with him to get the Obscurus to go away. Because again, the only reason the way an Obscurus manifests itself is if the person in question is put under so much pressure to suppress their own magic because of fear of persecution, of punishment. They could put Credence into a place where he didn't have to fear that, where he could have been himself. Kind of like with Harry, honestly. I mean, Harry had all the makings of having an Obscurus come forth, I think. Almost, anyway. He didn't know he was a wizard before, but he did make magic happen unintentionally throughout his life. And even afterwards, in Prisoner of Azkaban, when he accidentally inflated his aunt. I mean, Harry could have been in the same situation that Credence was in. But fortunately, he was told by someone that he's magic, and that he can go somewhere we can practice magic. He doesn't have to suppress it or hate it like Credence did. And kind of to Graves' point, they could have done that with Credence. They could have helped him get control of the Obscurus and put it to good use. And that this magical law that they have in place doesn't seem to help protect Muggles or no mage. It protects the wizards because it's some sort of abject fear that they have of being discovered. And after going through all of the bureaucracy and the red tape of it all, Graves kind of had enough. He kind of in that rant, he kind of just resigned from the auras and was walking away from this whole situation. So in that instant, the president ordered a barrier to be put up and for the auras to relieve Graves of his wand, because he had basically quit and was kind of walking off. And basically after a little rant he had, even though I feel there could be some truth to it, someone with that sort of mentality cannot obviously just be let go just to walk free. And to say, I think a good note to Colin Farrell, who played Percival Graves in the movie. I think a good note to his kind of acting. When the barrier kind of acting, or whatever you call it, but when the barrier was put up and the Orals are told to take his wand, kind of for a second, Graves kind of looked at the situation. His back was turned. He's walking away from everyone. Saw the barrier being put up. He kind of stopped for a second before he did anything. He stopped for a second and just thought, okay. So it's come to this. Tried to avoid this, but this is what's gonna have to happen, huh? All right. He didn't say it, mind you, but it's like the way his body language and his facial expressions were it's just like, okay, so we had it, so I have to do this now. He turned around immediately and started fighting off the entire small army of Aurors, single-handedly, mind you. He took a few of them down. I don't know if he killed them or not, but some of them went down. He probably killed them. Fighting all of them single-handedly, honestly, by himself. Non-verbal magic, doing it single-handedly. Like, I don't know how many Aurors there were, but there was quite a few of them. Fighting all of them off. All of them cast spells at the same time. He's taking a few of them down, not breaking a sweat. Newt had one of his magical creatures in his sleeve. I forget what it's called. It's his it's his bird creature. Came out of his sleeve, unfolded itself, wrapped itself around Graves' his arms, binding him, making him drop his wand. And in that moment, with Graves struggling, Newt kind of realized something. He used the Revealo spell, which, when I think about it, I mean, it's kind of odd that such a simple spell could reveal what they need to know. Whether through maybe a Polyjuice potion, whether through maybe Transfiguration, whether or not there was such a man named Percival Graves in existence. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. The man in front of them was not him. Whether a man named Graves actually existed or not, who was in front of them, it was not him. As it turns out, the infamous great dark lord Gellert Grindelwald had decided that he had enough of Europe and decided to try his luck across the pond in the US. Somehow, Grindelwald had disguised himself and inserted himself within the U.S. Magical Congress as not only as an aura, but also someone who works closely with the president of all people. When they saw this, I mean, it was an astonishing feat. Honestly, Grindelwald at that point was the most feared dark wizard in history up until Voldemort showed up, and it was astonishing the fact that they had him in their midst. The president took him into custody, took him into custody, putting an end to all of his attempted tyranny for the time being. If you know your Harry Potter lore, then you know that Grindelwald very obviously does not stay in prison. Spoiler alert, in case you didn't know. He's going to eventually escape at some point and be defeated by Dumbledore, and Dumbledore is going to imprison him in his own prison. Grindelwald had a prison he made for his enemies. Dumbledore's going to throw him in there himself as a nice bit of irony. Trivia factoid, apparently, yeah, Grindelwald was played by none other than Johnny Depp. I'd heard he was added to the film. I thought it was going to be in the next film, honestly. I heard he was going to be in Fantastic Beasts, but I thought it was going to be the next film. I thought they meant the next film in the series. He was in this film. I didn't even recognize him. I said, a lot of makeup. Speaking of Grindelwald, he looks nothing like I thought he would. I figured Grindelwald would look similar to Dumbledore, like a long beard, long hair, be old and everything. Maybe a wizard hat. I guess I kind of imagine Grindelwald looking sort of like Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings for some reason. I don't know. But in the movie, Grindelwald had very short white hair, very pasty skin. He looked nothing like how I imagined he would. He looked nothing like Johnny Depp. Didn't sound like Johnny Depp either, honestly. But they took him into custody, so he's gone for now. So, for the most part, everything is... Well, I say everything is right as rain, but it wasn't really. It just sucks that he had to die. That they had to kill Credence, and honestly, Grindelwald, being who he is, being a dark wizard, very much wanted to have Credence's Obscurus for himself, so he could use it for his dark campaign for domination. But at the same time, that little rant he did about how the law about keeping the magical world separate from the non-magical world, I think does have some truth to it. The way that they carry themselves trying to keep things concealed just seems to do more harm than good. Anyway, so after the huge struggle within New York with Credence Obscurus form, they couldn't obliviate an entire city, or maybe they, as my cat couldn't tell, or maybe they could, but maybe they shouldn't have. Damn it. The magical world was potentially exposed in that instance, since they couldn't obliviate everyone in the city. But according to Newt, they could. He had a potion that he created. He gave it to his Thunderbird, one of the large magical flying creatures in the magical zoo he kept in his case. He gave the potion to the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird has some sort of influence over the weather. It flew up way up into the sky and kind of dispersed the potion into the weather, into the clouds, making it rain all over New York. According to Newt, the potion has the effects of the Obliviate spell. So they were able to make everyone in the city forget what happened. And the entire Magical Congress worked on restoring the damage that had been done. All the damage that had been done, the streets that were destroyed, the buildings that were destroyed, everything was put back to normal. Everyone forgot everything, and it was all right as rain. Thankfully enough, fortunately enough. Unfortunately, they had to also erase Jacob's memory. No exceptions, unfortunately. You know, despite what Queenie had said, the reason that he was kept along the entire ride, you know, Queenie said, like, yep, you're one of us now. You're part of the group. Which is so great. God damn it, why did they erase his memory? It fucking sucks so much. And Newt even said that he kept Jacob with them because he liked him, you know. They became friends in like almost instantly. It was nice having him around, having, you know, working together to get all the magical creatures back together. They became such good friends so easily. And also, like, he and Queenie had that budding relationship forming, and they had to. God damn it! It that fucking sucks. He had to have his memory erased. And dude, it would have been so cool to have a nomad with them in the group. You know, just some guy. He's not magic, no, but you know he's different though. He's the odd man out in the group, and that would have been cool to have, like for further films. But they had to erase his memory. He and Queenie were able to have one last kiss with each other, or one kiss period, honestly. One last kiss. And then then Jacob stepped out into the rain that was still going on, unfortunately. Had the obliviation effect wash over him. And forgot everything. So Jacob went on with his normal, boring life in the canning factory, which he hated. But very magnanimously, Newt bumped into him again on his way out of the factory one day. I mentioned, you know, the snake creatures, the creatures with snake bodies, bird faces, and bird wings. They hatched from shells made out of pure silver. So Newt kind of bumped into Jacob on his way out of the factory, dropped the case with him. And when when Jacob opened it, there was a note inside, or maybe the note was on top of the case. I don't remember actually, to entice him to actually open the case up. But anyway, the note said to Jacob that Jacob is too good of a man to waste his. The guy's a World War I vet. He's too in. After everything they've done in the film, after everything they've been through, he's too good to just waste away his life in a canning factory. So he gave him all those silver eggs to use as collateral for a loan from the bank to open up his bakery. And fortunately, it paid off. It all paid off. Jacob's bakery is fucking successful. What's weird though is that one of the reasons it's so successful is the fact that Jacob makes the pastries in the shapes of the magical creatures, whether he doesn't remember. He vaguely remembers them. The images come into his head for some reason. He can't exactly tell why. It just does. and the very weird shapes of the creatures he makes into the pastries makes him kind of famous and makes the bakery work out pretty well. Queenie actually drops by the bakery one day, and Jacob kind of smiles at her because he vaguely remembers her. He vaguely recognizes her for some reason. That's kind of where the movie ends, but I don't know. I mean, Jacob himself hasn't changed. He just doesn't remember the couple of days they had together. I wish he did remember. It sucks that it sucks so much he had to forget. It sucks that he had to forget everything. It sucks that Credence had to die. The whole thing was really bittersweet. I like the movie though. It was I really enjoyed the movie. It was such a refreshing take on the Harry Potter universe, and I love this. I want more stuff like this. I want more expansion. I mean, we only ever saw one area of Harry Potter. That was just like not even the full UK. Even it was just one area of the UK. Apparently, Hogwarts is located in Scotland. Not that actually matters or anything, but it's just we see one small area, and being able to, I want to see more. I want to see more of the Harry Potter universe. I want to see an installment that takes place like in like the rest of the US and someplace in Canada, South America, Africa, Asia, Australia, even, you know. Maybe more of the UK, maybe we can see Ireland a little bit. The fact that we're getting more movies that takes place, well, this one installment anyway took place outside the UK. I enjoyed it immensely. I want more of this. I hope we get to see more. They're going to do 4 more films. 4 more installments of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And initially I was against that. But after seeing the movie, I'm all aboard for it. I'm so on board for this. For movie installments. I can't wait for the next one. If they do them like they've been doing, like I would say Marvel, I guess. Marvel puts out a new movie every year. No word on when the next movie's gonna come out, but hopefully it comes out next year. I'm hoping it does. Yeah, it was a really great film. I think one of the it has nothing to do with the quality of the film. Just a personal gripe. Kind of like just the movie's called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, right? Based on the book of the same, loosely based on the book of the same name. When Tina and Newt were saying goodbye to each other, as Newt was going to, I guess, go back to the UK to report his findings, like, you know, kind of a name drop in the film. Tina said that she couldn't wait to see the book, to get a copy of it, you know, to see everything he was going to write down. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I can't wait for that. And Newt kind of had this look of recognition on his face, like, yeah, that's a good name. I could call it that. I thought, really? That's kind of a forced in that was kind of forced into the movie. I felt just her out of nowhere saying that. Not even it wasn't even part of a sentence really. It was just that was a sentence on its own. I can't wait to see the book. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Like saying like that's what she thought was going to be about, you know. And then Newt was like, yeah, I could use that as the name of the book. I just thought that was just it was forced. I thought, again, that's not to talk about the quality of the movie, but it's just that's a personal gripe I had. I kind of thought it was not dumb, but just again forced. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, the movie was great. I really loved it. Can't wait to see more of it. 5 movies though. I don't know. We'll see. What will be good though, another book that J.K. Rowling did that was loosely connected to the Harry Potter universe was Quidditch Through the Ages, which I think is an actual book within the series too. Quidditch Through the Ages, goes through Quidditch Through the Ages. That's some hypocritical as fuck, man, don't I? I'm hypocritical as fuck after what I just said, and then I do it myself. It's fucking stupid. But anyway, the book talks about how Quidditch has changed from its beginnings to up to that point in time that the series takes place, that the Harry Potter series takes place. it would be cool to see like an entire sports movie based on Quidditch. You know, just like have a sort of ragtag underdog team trying to make it big in the Quidditch league, going up against like the league favorite. That'd be cool to have. I think. Why am I saying that? I kind of think that our chances of getting a movie like that, a Quidditch movie, aren't too bad. But the fact that they're focusing on Fantastic Beasts right now, and they may, I think they may turn Harry Potter and the Cursed Child into a movie, or there's a screenplay for it at least. I don't know, but anyway, I enjoyed the movie. Can't wait for more installments. Hoping for a Quidditch movie. That's what I'll have to say about it. I don't know. What did all of you think? Did you like the movie? Did you hate it? Do you think I'm wrong about it? Do you not want to see any more Harry Potter films or any more installments of Fantastic Beasts and where to find them? I don't know. Let me know in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys later.